told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus: God, I thank you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give 1/10 of all my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even look up to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. The Gospel of the Lord.
This time next week, we'll be celebrating the Feast of All Saints, as well as All Souls on the weekend. It's just something to keep in mind for ourselves as we prepare for these wonderful feast days that have been part of the tradition of the Church for centuries, but it also marks something that we celebrate secularly in some ways with Halloween on Friday night, and just to see the connection for them, but to see in our faith exactly what we're celebrating, especially on the weekend, and in a way having the fun that we could play with the ideas of Halloween on the Friday. But what it does, and it asks of us in the midst of a secular world that isn't thinking the way we do all the time, is to see the foundation of why we can play act and have some fun with Halloween and the idea of it. It's because of the assurance and the absolute faith that we have in the victory of the saints, which is the victory of Christ himself. And because of that, many of these ancient traditions and other things have grown up among the people of celebrating the night before and having a wonderful time in the celebrations that they had, but always in connection with the grace of Christ's resurrection, which is the overpowering victory for all of us in our lives. And it's just good for us to keep that in our minds and recognize these ancient celebrations that are here before us, see their truth, put them in the proper context for us, and see, especially through our faith, the victory of Christ that never goes away, and that is the victory for the salvation of the world. What we do is we celebrated, like we did last week, is just recognizing the importance of our Sunday celebration. This is the thing that gives a rhythm to our life. We celebrate the Feast of All Saints and All Souls every year, as we do, and we mark things on the calendar. But weekly, on the first day of the week, we follow the command of the Lord to gather and to celebrate his resurrection, and to unite ourselves again to his crucifixion, to his sacrifice, and his resurrection, fulfilling the gift we've been given in baptism. And as we go through these steps, if we're able to go Mass every day, but just concentrating on the weekly celebration that we have, which is so important, this becomes an opportunity, as we spoke of last week and we've spoken of before, to place ourselves on the altar with Christ, to have our lives offered in the sacrifice of Christ himself. But the other beautiful aspect of what we celebrate is that weekly we receive these wonderful readings from the Gospels, chosen by the Church to give us semblances, but also the truth of the gospel that Jesus came and preached to his disciples for 3 years before his death and resurrection. And this becomes our school. This becomes the school of discipleship, coming regularly and listening to these Gospels proclaimed for us, taking the message, just as the disciples did in the earthly passage that they had with Christ in the years before his death and resurrection. We also are given the grace and the invitation to insert ourselves into this school of discipleship, listening to these parables again and again and again all through our lives. And we need to listen to them again and again and again. And I need to listen to them again for myself and my own sake, to listen and learn again and refocus ourselves and refocus myself in this school of discipleship and this school of what it means to be a follower of Jesus, because the mysteries that he preaches to us have so many layers of beauty to them and so many layers of invitation to us that they never exhaust themselves for the rest of our lives. And in many ways, what he preaches today is a school of excellence. Almost as if there's a presumption there that these people are keeping away from things that are spoken of by the Pharisee, because these all are exaggerated examples, even though they exist in our world and exist in our lives. But all the things that are really debilitating and killing within ourselves of breaking the Ten Commandments. These are the things, if we're ever in there, we pull ourselves out as quickly as we can and go to the recesses of the church in its mercy in the sacrament of confession. But this school of perfection is speaking of the new teaching of the Beatitudes in many ways, the rarefied air of the grace that Christ gives to us in these messages. This is what it means, and this is the danger that is there in the hearts of every human being. Every human being born with this sin of pride within themselves, who make themselves righteous or have the tendency and disposition to make themselves righteous through their acts and their deeds. And truly we are thankful to the Lord, as the Pharisee was, that we don't follow these things that could be part of our lives and the passions that are part of our souls and could drag us down. We're thankful to the Lord that we don't do those things. If we do, we pull ourselves up into the mystery of the recesses of the church. But in being thankful for that, Christ invites us to something even greater. Now, always recognize, even in the midst of this, the greatest danger is that having fulfilled these things and giving the grace to live this kind of life, that we pull ourselves down by making ourselves self-righteous. Through my own merits I'm doing these things, as we tell ourselves and trick ourselves and deceive ourselves. And Christ, I'm sure, with his disciples around him, is recognizing the remarkable progress they're making in the path of spiritual life and growth. And now he needs to teach them there is always something prevalent in your souls from those deep recesses within us that will come forward and put the great merit on yourself rather than on God himself who gives the grace. And then this juxtaposition of these two examples, the one who seems to be living a righteous life but is putting the faith in himself, and the one who's in the depths of despair and is calling upon the Lord in his mercy. And then we learn this discipleship of striving for these things and every day living a life of conversion, no matter what we're doing, needing every day and every moment during our day a sense and a disposition of conversion. Have mercy on me, Lord, a sinner. No matter where we are in our life, whatever graces the Lord has given to us, always having that sense and disposition of knowing that it is the Lord that we need in everything we do in our lives. And this becomes the lesson for today and the lesson of this wonderful school that the Lord gives to us. Constantly refining this gift that he gives to us and always striving, as St. Paul does in the reading today. Paul is coming to the end of his life, and we've mentioned this wonderful phrase that he speaks to us today. His life is being poured out, he says to his dear Timothy, my poor life is being poured out now as a libation. He knows he's coming to the end of his life, and he looks back in the grace that the Lord has given to him, and he's thankful for the fact that he now can pour out his life as he has in the past as a libation to the Lord. He's fought the good fight. He knows that the Lord has reserved for him a crown of righteousness. And this is the great assurance and hope that the pilgrims of hope have always in their hearts. And it's a wonderful prayer that Paul gives to us. It comes to that wonderful recognition that we pray all of us will have now and in the future in our lives, especially as we approach the end of our life, of knowing that we've poured out our life as a libation to the Lord and given of ourselves, following the example of Paul, but above all, following the example of Christ himself, who gives his life for our salvation.